Yo, hey guys, it's Beast, back with some more beastly content, and this is the release edition of everything you need to know for Deviated Secure. The full launch is here, and the devs have made some massive changes based on feedback from the early access scenario. And to top it all off, there's currently a Power World collab currently going on, with multiple events happening right now. I will be covering all of these in a future video, so stay tuned for that, but for today, we're going to cover everything you need to know about the new core systems, from progression and unlocks to leveling and farming, so you can become a securement master. Alright, let's dive into the biggest change, which is all about progression. If you played in the early access, forget what you knew. The progression flow is totally different. First, the Memetic unlocks are now directly tied to your Securodex level. This streamlines everything. You're no longer just capturing endless deviations to hit a raw value. Your level is what matters for unlocking new Memetics. Second, and this is a big one, all the arena bosses are now unlocked during the very first phase, aside from Mr. Wish. That's right, no more waiting for phase 2 or phase 3 to challenge the later bosses. You can see the whole path laid out from the start. However, this doesn't mean you can just walk up to the final boss. There are now intermediate Securodex levels you must hit, and these come with missions, like clearing 3 gyms in the area before you can challenge each boss. This new structure completely changes how you'll approach the game. You'll work your way through the story, clear the required gems, raise your Securodex level, and then take on the area's arena boss. Now, a critical note on your team compensation for these challenges: because the Securodex unlock requirement for S-Class and Chaos Mutagen crafting are locked behind your progression, you won't be crafting these top tier deviations early on. This means for your initial gym and arena challenges, you'll be relying heavily on your A-Class and B-Class deviations. But let's be clear, S-Class deviations are not banned if you are lucky enough to get an S-Class deviation from either a wild catch or by T-pointing one in, or from a gift box T-pointed in. You can absolutely use it, but since most S-Class can only be obtained through fusion, A and B will be your bread and butter for progression through the story. And to help get you through these challenges, another huge quality of feature, at least for those who played in the early access, is the arena teleports that are instantly usable. Not sure if this applies to brand new players in their first season, but for returning players playing in the simplified version, this is a fantastic head start, letting you travel the map right away. Now, let's talk about Symbios Value and leveling, because this has all been expanded. First, the maximum Securodex level has been increased from 5 to 10. This means a longer, more detailed progression path. So how do you advance that level? It's all about your Symbios Value. This is the value you have to reach to advance each Securodex level, and every single deviation you have stored in your Securodex affects this value. And in the release version, the Symbios Value is also tied to the levels of Deviation. This is your main grind. Simply capturing a high value deviation isn't enough. You need to actively level your deviations to increase your total Symbios Value, which is necessary for progressing your Securodex. What this means for you is that you're going to be using a lot more Exp aggregate this time around. If you want to see exactly what level you need to be, just check the Securodex menu. There's a full chart laid out right there that shows you what Securodex level unlocks what new level cap for your deviations. This makes XP aggregators one of the most important items in the game now. You'll want to be crafting these constantly, or at the very least have plenty of Digbees for passive aggregators to power up your team. Not just for combat, but for your fundamental progression. Now, a quick pro tip for an easy way to level up your Symbios level. Head to the Wishland TP Tower. Here you can easily capture By the Winds, with even just tier 2 binding grenades. These deviations drop at level 45 and have a value of 20 plus symbiosis. You can just reload the tower and capture them until you're good. Well, or until you're out of binding grenades. Okay, so we know we need to raise our Securodex level by leveling Deviations. Let's talk about why this is so critical, because it's not just for crafting. In this release edition, your gear and supplies bench are also locked behind your Securodex level. This completely changes the early game progression. You can't just T-point in materials for a tier 3 set on day 1 and call it a day. You have to earn your way up. You'll have to start by making a basic tier 2 set of gear. The tier 1 and tier 2 materials for this can be farmed right in Blackfell. The 3 core farming buildings are the motel, the courthouse, and the greenhouse with the pool. Your new gameplay loops looks like this. Craft your tier 2 set, then start challenging those early gems in arena. As you level your deviations and clear these challenges, your Securodex level will rise. Once you get to the proper Symbios level, you will finally unlock the Memetic for the intermediate gear and supplies bench. This intermediate bench is a big step, as it allows you to craft both tier 3 and tier 4 gear. Now, you can go farm your tier 3 materials at locations like Extraction Point 73 and Sunshine Farms. At this point, you can craft your tier 3 set. Or, you might as well just make a tier 4 set, provided you have the T-points and the Artisan's Hands in Eland for easy repairs. Now keep in mind, you need to be player level 30 to equip this tier 4 gear. If you're playing on a Visional server, you can easily farm Acid, Whispers, and easy XP by simply mining ores or logging trees and killing the waves of enemies that spawn. Then all you will have to do is log off, log back on, rinse, and repeat until you're level 30. Now as for what gear you should build, I recommend making a 2-piece cold resist set and the rest pollution resist. Or for a good all area set, you can make a 2-piece cold with a 2-piece heat and a 2-piece pollution resistance set. The reason for this is to get you into those higher level areas safely, which allow you to start farming for easier Symbios levels and capturing those more valuable deviations much sooner. And this loop continues from here. You just keep working your way through those dex levels, eventually unlocking the advanced gear and supplies bench, which will let you craft tier 5 gear upon reaching phase 2 and farming the material. This same logic applies to your capture tools. Higher tier binding grenades are also locked behind your Securodex level. This makes your passive farms, which we'll cover next, even more critical for a smooth experience. So, with that in mind, let's talk about setting up your operation. While all arena challenges are instantly reachable by progressing your way through story, I highly recommend you get started on your base early. A good base with the right passive deviations will do all the hard work for you. And for an even more fun time, you can bring an extra character or so for more deviation slots and more farming. Now for a full list of passive deviations with good use, you can check my PokeHuman doc link below, but my main recommendations are essential. First, the Logging Beaver. These guys are incredible for early game passive, lower tier binding grenades, and will give you unlimited logs for building. Second, the Digbees. You absolutely want them. As we've mentioned, their real power is passively collecting this scenario's rare candies, special items that will instantly level your deviations to your secured cap. Third, Paper Dolls. Set them up to passively collect metal scraps as well as rubber, which is needed to craft binding grenades at later stages for the metal scraps, and for the rubber, even mutagens. And finally, H37s are also a great option for passive deviations, as they bring back crystals and other high value crafting materials, which you will definitely need. Okay, so you've got your base set up for farming, but now you need to go out and find the deviations themselves. The devs have given us a massive quality of life update for this in the release edition. If you open your map and look at the resource filter, you'll see a brand new deviation tab. This is a game changer. This tab will give you a hint of where to find deviations you haven't even unlocked yet, which is a huge for filling out your Securodex, and even better for any deviation you've already captured in this scenario. The map will now show you every single possible spawn point for it. No more guessing or running around blind. It also seems that your deviation unlocks and discoveries will carry over from previous Deviated Secure seasons. So your map might already be populated if you're a returning player. Now, before we get into crafting from scratch, there's one more new feature for acquiring deviations. The devs now allow you to bring deviations into the scenario from outside. However, this is a very high cost feature. It costs a whopping 10,000 transfer points in order to transfer one singular dev. Now, to be honest, while this season it probably wouldn't be at all worth it, I can definitely imagine a future scenario while bringing in an already powerful dev, especially one with those new high level skills and traits, might just come in handy and be worth the cost. Just something to keep in mind for the future. So, with that said, let's talk about what you should use inside this scenario. For a killer early game combo, look for the Atomic Snail and the Electric Eel. The Snail gives rapid skill charge, letting the eel pump out constant AoE power surge damage, while the eel also recharges the eel, and your third deviation being any sort of damage deviation, and you'll easily melt the enemies. Now, let's talk end game crafting. To craft S-Class and Chaos mutagens, you'll need materials like Stardust and Crystals. Now, in previous videos, I mentioned wanting the oil processing or Stardust refinery Memetics. However, this isn't as important nowadays because the Arena Challenge bosses now drop Stardust Source. This is a huge change as it allows you to farm up your Arena coins while also farming up the Stardust Source you need for crafting. That said, I still highly recommend you unlock the Crystal Transformation Memetic for any serious securement expert, as you will need a lot of crystals for all of your mutagen crafting. Remember, S-Class and Chaos Class mutagen crafting are now locked behind Securodex levels, so you'll need to work your way through the Dex levels and the Arena challenges to even unlock the ability to craft them. As for the Chaos Deviations, their codes can now be purchased using Chaos Coins. You can get these coins from the Chaos Trials, which unlock at Securodex level 9. For now, we'll forget about the Chaos devs, but stay tuned for a future full-length guide on this. Is where the real min-maxing begins. A dev has its ultimate plus 3 additional skills. You want to avoid cursed skills like Cryo Bullet by either creating blank slates or overloading them with more than 3 skills, and the outcome can be without the skill you don't want. Now in the release edition, this just got a lot easier. The devs have added a way to see compatible skills right in the fusion chamber and in the Deviations info page. This tells you all the skills that are possible for each deviation, allowing you to choose your 3 preferred skills much easier. And this is more important than ever because, as we've said, skills now have levels. You're not just looking for the right skill, you're looking for the highest level of that skill you can possibly find. This new UI makes planning the perfect fusion so much better. So, how do you get these skills? You have 2 main paths. The first is Inheritance. This is still the best way to get high level skills quickly. You can farm wild deviations until you find one with the skills you want at a high level and then fuse that deviation into your main. The second path is using skill mutagens, and this has been totally updated. You can now use more than one of the same skill mutagen in a single fusion. One mutagen gives a 50% chance, so feeding 2 of the same mutagens gives a 100% chance to guarantee that skill on the final deviation. This is a game changer. It means you can take 2 blank slate parents and just force the skill onto the new dev. Keep in mind these mutagens from the shop seem to start at level 1, so inheriting is still king for getting those max level skills. And of course you can't forget traits. With the newly added HP, attack, and other stat based traits, these are absolutely crucial. Getting a deviation with the right skills at high levels and the right bonus traits is how you will truly max out your deviation's power. As one last bonus, I'll also mention that a few of these deviations have shiny versions available. This adds yet another layer of rare farming you can do in this scenario, so keep an eye out. And speaking of farming, here's a pro tip for your in-game grenade setup. Once you fully unlock the high tier grenades by raising your Securodex level, this is how you automate it. You'll want to combine the passive metal scraps from your paper dolls with materials from a few tungsten mining platforms. Now, a note on these platforms, it seems that the Way of Winter areas are where you'll be able to set them up for tungsten. To find the right spot, you can craft an ore detector in your Memetics page. Just use that detector and it will tell you what all can be mined in the area you're in. While getting a passive tungsten farm isn't entirely necessary, it is definitely helpful, and the extra tungsten is something you can easily sell for a profit. So these platforms can mine that all-important tungsten. You also need a passive acid setup to fuel the smelting of that ore into in-game ingots like tungsten and aluminum ingots. Unless of course you're in a visual server. Now you have a few options for getting this acid. The most direct way is to build your base in a polluted area and use a pump for a sweet acid farm. But if you don't want to live in the smog, there is another great way. You can grow one of the 3 contaminated plants and just craft the acid at the synthesis bench. Of course, you won't be able to turn your crops into acid until you reach the proper Securodex value to unlock the synthesis benches, but this is an especially easy passive setup if you're running multiple characters. And the best part, those same mining platforms also have the ability to mine binding stones. The combination of passive metal scraps, tungsten, and binding stones will allow for easy, pure passive end-game binding grenade crafting. Finally, I have to give one final mention to the PokeHuman doc link below. Now, while it was created during the early access, it still has plenty of useful info, from a full deviation list categorized by type to a skill mutagen catalog that tells you what arena boss sells what skills. On that note, a huge change is that the arena shops are not all locked by default now. This means you cannot purchase some of those powerful skill mutagens until you actually beat the arena boss that sells them. This change means you might really want to use my PokeHuman doc to plan your builds. In it, I also link over to the comprehensive skill list from Reddit, where every deviation is listed out with all their compatible skills. While it's missing some of the latest devs right now, I update my PokeHuman doc frequently. And fingers crossed the Reddit skills list gets the same treatment. And that's the rundown on the new release version of Deviated Secure. The new progression system makes the journey feel much more structured, and the new leveling requirements add a satisfying grind. Get your farm set up, start leveling those A and B class deviations, and go take on those arena bosses. Thanks for watching, happy hunting, and keep it beast mode.